Hey everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW, Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. And Joe, today we have a special guest with us, the guy who's going to be taking on Hammerstone for the FSW Heavyweight Championship this coming Saturday at No Escape, Mr. Brian Cage. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. As you can see in my gym, I mean, come on. What another wrestler will be at the gym doing a podcast? So give me that answer. The same wrestlers to be at the gym, period, these days. So that's not many besides myself and Hammerstone. So it's fitting that we're going to be going one-on-one for the title this Saturday.
Joe, do you remember your first time seeing Brian?
Yeah, he actually had the first match he had was the 2009 FSW Match of the Year. The Silver Nugget, he wrestled Brandon Gatson, and immediately we're like, wow, this Gatson guy is really able to carry this Brian Cage guy.
That's funny.
Brian, yeah.
How many more matches of the year? Hold on. Let me retort to that one. Yeah. How many more matches of the year did I have, huh? Whereas Gatson, and I'm not trying to crap on Gatson. He's good. He's my guy. But Gatson could have carried me. Come on, let's get real. Anyways, what was the question? What are you gonna ask?
Well, what were your memories of that match with Gatson? Do you remember?
That was actually my first time meeting Gatson too. Even though we both were in SoCal. And
wow.
he was great. It was an awesome match. Definitely a great debut. And our follow-up match was good too, but it wasn't as good as the first one.
What brought you out this way? Do you remember who got you introduced to FSW, Brian?
You know what? I do not. I remember talking to somebody once I got released from developmental in WWE, and I remember somebody was talking on Facebook. And I was barely even on Facebook too. And I remember just seeing what sold me was seeing an indie company with like a sweet stage. I was like, whoa. They got a legit stage and lighting. This is the real deal. That was pretty much the main reason I wanted to go out there. And then whoever it was, I don't remember, he spoke highly of it. And then, I tried to get out there and luckily enough had an awesome first match.
Joe, what was your next steps with Brian in terms of trying to keep him around and getting him involved more with FSW?
Well, initially it was a little difficult because Brian would drive in from Fresno, and thankfully, Allegiant Airlines became a thing, and they flew out of Fresno, and he's like, bro, this is way too far, blah, blah, blah. So we didn't use him that often. And with the FSW fans, it takes a little while. They want to believe that you're going to be a regular guy. And because of the flights, we were able to get him in way more. I remember at Sam's Town, there was a delay on the flight. I think he showed up 5 minutes before his match with Funny Bone, It wasn't always smooth sailing.
I had two matches that night, too. Matches that night.
And he wrestled Funny Bone, and then in the Elite Championship, it was him and Kenny King as the final two.
Brian, what was that like for you having to jump off of an airplane, get there, and wrestle, a couple matches? Was it for you dedication and showing that, hey, man, I make my dates and I'm there for you?
Well, I mean, that wasn't the only time that happened at FSW, and it's not the only time it's happened, period, in wrestling. But yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, real talk, I love this, right? I'm signed with AEW, and I don't have to do any independent promotions, right? But I choose to because I love wrestling. I love what I do, and I want to be able to do it as much as I can. So, absolutely, I don't want to be the guy that flakes or doesn't make a show or whatever. If there's a will, then there's a way. So, especially when I have a fun, cool match on top of that. So, I was glad I was able to make it and bang them out.
And Joe, what started your thought process in going, hey, I think we might want to put the strap on Brian?
Well, as he became more regular in there, you saw he was so talented, and the matches that he had, if you look at it, his match with Sami Callihan and Keith Lee at When Stars Collide, it was Ring of Honor weekend. And I remember all the fans, were talking about that weekend, and they weren't talking about the Young Bucks match. They were talking about that match as the best match of the weekend. And I remember even on Twitter, the Young Bucks responded, "Oh, highly unlikely." I remember they said something like that. And it was like, but Brian had his match, the TLC match with Matt Hardy. It to this day is still one of the biggest shows we've ever had in FSW history. So Brian's been part of like 3 match of the years. And what I always liked about Brian was when he put the match together, you know, he made sure everybody got a chance to shine. You know, we did it when we did our shows in Phoenix with the IWF. He had a chance to work Drew McIntyre and a lot of great talent there. And, you know, same thing in Vegas. You know, nobody knew who Keith Lee was. I actually went to Brian when we were putting together the Mecca shows. I'm like, bro, who are some guys? And, you know, I want to bring in some fresh talent for the Mecca stuff. And the first guy he recommended was Keith Lee. And when Sami Callihan needed an opponent, we made it a 3-way, and it was just fantastic. So, you know, from day one, anytime you had a Brian Cage match, you knew it was going to be probably the best match on the show. You know, he did some stuff with the Reno Scum. You know, he actually teamed up with them to defend the titles one night. Like, no matter where you put them, it was always going to be ground.
And Brian, for you, in terms of building your reputation like that amongst the guys, to be able to, you know, get the, you know, some of your friends who you met through the business into matches here in Vegas or elsewhere, what did that mean to you? Because you're so passionate about wrestling. Did you look at this as an opportunity to work with friends and to just get exposure for the guys at that time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get along with plenty of the guys, but even then, like for people who I've worked with or I've seen that are great, they just needed a breakout moment. Like that was, speaking of Keith Lee, then that's like when you start a breakout. I just want to get him work, right? Like, oh, we were cool, but he might didn't like the guy. I couldn't deny his talent, his ability, much like anybody else. At the end of the day, if it's going to bring forth a great match, then I want them to be in the match, and I want to give them the opportunity. I'm not somebody trying to like be on the top of the pedestal, push everybody off. I want to be up on the pedestal, pulling everybody up with me so we can all shine, just like Joe said. I make sure everyone shines because I know I'm Mr. Get My Shit In, but really, the best way for me to get my shit in is to make sure everybody gets the shit in so we freaking own the spotlight and have the match of the night and steal the show. And that's always my goal. And I think that's really what's everyone's goal when you're wrestling on shows. You want to have, you know, that breakout moment and be like, damn, that match was the best. So it was great. And as Joe said too, being able to work with all these people and in that match with Reno Scum, and if you remember, Joe, that was because Lester couldn't make it. And I offered the team with Adam, and then I worked cross that night to defend the singles title. And I didn't even charge him more for the second match. You know, I'm a good guy.
That's what I love about Brian. He'll tell you, hey, who's one of your favorite promoters? He goes, my favorite promoter that always underpaid me is Joe DeFalco.
This is pretty much true.
Well, Brian, is there a match that stands out for you as one of your favorite matches here? Was that Hardy match maybe one of your favorites to do here?
The two he mentioned in Vegas, the Matt Hardy TLC match and the triple threat with Sami and Keith Lee probably are my two favorite. And it's also, I feel like the hottest crowds and the hottest crowd reaction I think I've ever seen too at FSW shows. So those are definitely two standouts for sure. But there's been a plethora of good matches there. You know, some of those I kind of forget about. And then those, I think still not in Vegas, but the Phoenix shows, that we did too. We said that tournament we did in Phoenix and even the early on IWF stuff was a lot of fun.
I'll tell you what, the one I'm most proud of with Brian was he had an issue. We were doing the Mecca Grand Championship, and Brian and John Morrison were two of the three guys, and Chris Bay kind of got added late. And I've never seen two guys of Brian and John Morrison's stature. They went out of their way to make Chris Bay look like the biggest star that you've ever seen in Vegas. And that's all credit to them for allowing them to go out there. Chris Bay has a YouTube thing with John Morrison when he was like 7 years old. So that was like a dream come true for him to be in the ring with John. And with Brian in there, the Vegas fans love Chris Bay. And at that moment, they really solidified him as, along with Cross, as, the two Vegas legends that have come through the door.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. Cross and Chris Bay are probably two biggest and best like homegrown talents from you.
And Brian, what does the fan base mean to you? For, like Joe said, and you said, kind of the fan pop was huge, at that Mecca match. What for you defines the FSW fandom?
Well, I've definitely seen it grow. Like from when I first came out, just because they had a sweet stage setup, to now, it's definitely grown. I think too, just because Joe's done a great job of not only building his own local talent and a consistent local show in school, but also he's brought a lot of talent in and he's trying to make it like a little super indie, like a la PWG or whatever. And I think that's definitely brought in a lot more of the super fans, the smart fans, as well as the casual guys or people just in Vegas that want to watch something entertaining. So it's definitely grown a whole heck of a lot, and I hope we can add Hammerstone night to the top matches of Cage FSW this weekend.
Yeah, you're going to be wrestling on No Escape, which is 4 cage matches on that show. But you and Hammerstone
technically five.
Well, let's see. In wrestling, Alex, what is it about a guy who has kind of the same abilities in terms of the strength and matches you kind of size-wise that you look at when you're looking at how you're going to approach the match? What is it going to be like for you to be in the ring with him?
Well, this is my Hammerstone's first barbecue. We've worked at FSW before in a couple of places. And you know what? It's always an honor to work Hammerstone too, because I know he's always excited to work with me. And he'll be the first one to tell you too that I was low-key kind of someone he looked up to, like as far as, I want to get to his level in the ring. I want to get to his level of physique and shape. And I mean, I'll be damned. He's done a hell of a job at it year after year. And I'm thrilled to work with bigger guys because it's a different versatility aspect. Because most guys are smaller than me, and I enjoy that as much. I like being able to have the ability to work with anyone and everyone. But I get to work with somebody else closer to my stature and my strength, it obviously makes me build out different stuff in my repertoire that I don't normally get to use. And then on top of that, Hammerstone is just about equally as athletic of a big muscular guy as me as well. So it always makes for definitely a standout match from the rest of the card. And I don't expect it to be any different this time. And I'm looking forward to it.
Joe, what do you expect when you book a match like this from two guys that are not only great wrestlers, great condition, but also are two guys who are huge with the fans? What do you expect going into this in terms of what you're going to see in the ring?
Well, as Brian said, those guys have kind of wrestled a couple of times in the Mecca Grand Tournament. Cage beat Hammerstone. They also had a match in FSW when Hammer was a lot younger. So for us, this is the first time in a few years, that Brian's going to wrestle Hammerstone, and Hammerstone has become a guy with potential to now a guy being the guy. So, for him, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a big deal, because when Brian was the champion, he was one of the first, as we've talked about, the legacy of FSW champions. After Matt Hardy, and then Brian Cage, and then Cross, and then Sean Ricker and Chris Bay and Hammerstone, the legacy of whoever became FSW heavyweight champion ended up really going on to bigger and better things. And, Hammer is gotten some great accolades. He's now the MLW champion. And I think he's looking forward because Now I think for the first time, Hammerstone looks at Brian Cage as an equal instead of a guy he looked up to. And I'm hoping one day to be as good as him. And I think Hammerstone feels that he is as good as him.
Brian, what happens if you win that championship on Saturday night? Do you take it back to LA and tout it around town as you own Vegas now?
I'd probably just sell it on eBay. No, I'm kidding. Going with what Joe said though first, I will agree. I will put Hammer over on the fact that all of our previous matches, I think he's definitely has improved, and he's definitely in his prime now, in every sense of the word, in every aspect of the game. Whereas I feel like I've been in my prime, so if anything, I feel like he's definitely caught up to me more in the ring skills, in the strength department, in the body department, all that stuff. So I definitely have a bigger, better Hammerstone than what I'm previously experienced to. But yeah, if I walk away with the title, 2-time FSW champ, well, I guess that means Joe has to book me again next month. So.
Uh-oh. We got to go into the deep pockets.
Joe, what is your favorite Brian Cage memory or story?
Well, the one at Sam's Town when we're like, man, we have this tournament, and when's he going to show up? Is he going to be there? But it's more of like the conversations of trying to get him out here. I remember, the very first time, I remember he hit me up. And then because he hit me up, he was tag teaming with Sean Ricker in Hollywood. And after Brian was here a few times, Sean Ricker hit me up. And because of Brian, and there was a few guys, Brian Cage, the Reno Scum, they're the ones who, especially in California, really spread the word of what a good promotion we were. So everybody heard good things, and a lot of people really started hitting us up after the success those guys had, because they like coming out here. They like coming to Vegas. I try to treat people as well as I could, even though I may not have been able to afford, full pricing on everybody, but I always let them know, and I was upfront and honest. And when we decided to start doing some stuff in Arizona, Brian was the handpicked guy. He's the longest reigning IWF champion in history.
That's right.
And we brought him out to Phoenix, and, we had some great shows out there, the IWF. We did 3 of them. And in the last one, Brian actually beat Drew McIntyre in a 4-way where we went elimination style. I still remember Drew slapping Stu Stone's glasses off his head. The glasses went like 100 feet away, and Stu came up to me. He broke my glasses. He broke my glasses. And I think they were like $500 glasses for Stu.
Well, Brian, when you think of those types of memories, do you have a favorite story about Joe, or, a favorite quirk or anything that sticks out to you about Joe DeFalco?
Okay, yeah, I'm just going to just laundry list it right here. So as you said, definitely a quote from mine that is my favorite, albeit like lower paid promoter, but he's a great guy. I get along great with Joe, his son, his wife. I've stayed at their house before. I've raided their cabinet and freezer of sweets and treats. Joe used to also, we just talked about that last night, Joe, a part of the deal. He used to always take me to Protein House when I got in too, which was a huge plus. Huge plus. Speaking of food, after the IWF show, you remember when we all went to Cracker Barrel?
Yeah, Cracker Barrel.
And we had that big cheat. And I ordered all that food, and Ricochet and stuff, everyone's like, you can't eat all that. And I demolished it before anybody finished anything. That was so a memory. Oh, and Stu Stone, you remember that fan attacked him? When, like, the fan pulled his
foot. He was Shannon the Cannon. He was like the MMA guy.
Yeah. You tried to drag him out of the ring. That's right. I forgot about that. That's good times. It's been a lot of good times.
Yeah, we had a nice drive. Tyson Tyler, who helped run the show, somehow treated the other guys better. And I remember we did a show in Vegas, and Brian, Ricochet, and Rich Swann we all drove in the car from Vegas to Phoenix. And remember, he had us out. Shelton Benjamin and all the other guys got the good hotel, and we got the little shithole.
Yeah, especially for freaking the previous show when we had the amazing hotel, and then we got this crappy run of the mill, like awful one.
So me, Brian, and my kid had to share the room. So Brian, of course, got the bed, and me and my kid had to sleep in the same bed because he couldn't even get us a regular room. And I was running the show for him.
He was trying to take your spot of being the cheapest promoter. Look at him.
I'm telling you.
Well, Brian, we're gonna kind of wrap you up here so that we don't keep you too long. But when you think about this coming Saturday, and you think about being in front of the fans in Vegas again, since this will be pretty much your first trip back since the pandemic shut everything down out here, and you obviously haven't been able to perform in front of a live crowd. What are you looking forward to in terms of that first walkthrough of the curtain and just getting that response being back in town?
Well, ever since the pandemic, it's been great. Every time I've worked any independent show, when it's a return to a federation, a return to a city, because you kind of just had that nostalgic, like, it's good to be back kind of feeling, and good to be back in the sense too that things are a bit more normal than they were. So that's always a great reaction. But then again, to have somebody equally as great across the room from me, Hammerstone, who's also a friend of mine as well, it really makes me look forward to it. And I would have taken just any show this day and age after a holiday. Normally I wouldn't have cared before, but now, I'll take some time off. But with this one, got me more hyped and definitely willing to take it. So I'm looking forward to it, and it should be a good time. So when I step off the curtain, and a little Terminator clap, it'll be good days.
Joe, any final thoughts for Brian before we let him go?
Well, it's been a long time coming. We've always still kind of kept in touch. How's it going? What's going on? Just trying to make things work. And we hope this is the start of, semi-regular status again for Brian. He lives in Vegas now, and we're still trying to get him over to the training facility and, smack around some of the green kids who don't understand the business very well. But, just him being here, it's great to have him back. Him and Hammerstone, we're trying to build, bigger and bigger shows. We got the Mecca coming up in February, and we got some huge names coming in. And when he was booked elsewhere with like Lucha Underground and stuff, Brian was one of our mainstays. So we're definitely looking forward, to have him. He's already, I have to hit him up because I know he's going to have numerous guys that he'd love to work. So he's going to message me and say, hey, who I'd love to work. And then we got to see if we can get it done.
Hey, but tell me this, Joe. Have I ever recommended anybody who wasn't good?
You have not. That's why, like I said, Keith Lee, when we brought in Sammy, all those guys, man, Brian knows his shit. He could be a talent relations guy down the line once the career's over.
That's what I'm talking about. FSW, VP of Talent Relations.
Well, final question for you, Brian. How is your lovely wife, Melissa, doing?
She's doing great. Speaking of which, she's great. She won't like this, but I don't know how we missed this one, Joe. Another good Joe memory. Joe actually held the reception for my very first wedding to my ex-wife in his ring. He likes to bring that up all the time as well.
Yeah, I could tell you the date, maybe more than him, because it was on my wife's birthday, June 15th.
Yeah. Yep. This is correct. But
yes. I had some Hawaiian food, and I remember the cakes that you had.
That's right. Yeah, it was all great. But enough of that. I don't need any more house heat. But Melissa's doing great. She's doing fantastic. Maybe she'll be on my list of recommendations for Joe to bring in for future shows.
You never know. We need an announcer for the Mecca. We might work the Brian Cage package deal.
There it is.
I pay him the same rate either way, but I have to use her.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Brian Cage, current AEW superstar, man. Continue the great work there, but we're excited to see you here in Vegas this Saturday for No Escape, where you take on Hammerstone for the FSW Heavyweight Championship. And thank you for taking the time and still being able to get your workout in as well. That is inspirational, brother. And can't wait to see you on Saturday, man.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. No problem.
All right.
We'll see you
See
Saturday.
you Saturday, Brian.
Take care, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving, brother. Oh, there we go. We had Mr. Brian Cage on for everyone. And again, it's going to be this Saturday, No Escape. And Joe, let's talk about a little about No Escape and what you're expecting to see. Let's start with that cage match for the contender, number one contendership for the No Limits Championship. You got Jay Vidal, you got Danny Limelight, you've got Thomas Day, refresh my memory, who else is in that match?
Well,
and
we have a former No Limits champion, Brandon Gatson, who has had an amazing transformation over the last year or so. He always had a lot of back issues and things like that, and he has gotten himself in, some of the best shape of his life. It first started actually a couple years ago. He happened to be in town. He wanted to come check out a show. I'm like, hey, you want to work a match? I had him work Chris Bay, and they had a killer match. And I'm like, wow, Gatson still got the abilities. And since then, he has just gotten better and better and better. So having him in the match, then we got a youngster by the name of Midas Creed, who's wrestled a couple times. A very impressive young guy who, looking to take off, as well as Jordan Cruz, who's had a lot of accolades through the West Coast. Unfortunately, one of my favorite guys who I think for that match would have been fantastic, Eli Everfly, got injured. So, right now, unfortunately, he's not able to make No Escape or Limitless that, again, if you watch and listen here, it's all good. I'll let you know, we just got Trey Miguel signed. So, along with Davey Richards and Jay Vidal and Matt Vandergriff and Damian Drake and Adrian Quest, just to name a few. So, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I know Trey's excited. I saw him last night at the Impact tapings, and it just sounds like Limitless is just going to be off the chain, crazy talent, and that's going to be coming up in December. With having the 4 cage matches at No Escape this weekend, it all has to be just a little different, of course, so that, not every match feels the same. And one of the, I guess, blood feuds at this point is going to be Remy and Class going for the Nevada State Championship. And I say blood feud because Remy was beat down and pretty much almost unconscious when Class cashed in for the championship. Is that something you're excited to see, how Remy approaches this type of match with a guy like Class, who is definitely just really starting to gain such not only good experience, but he's becoming such a presence and such a great talent. What do you see when you look at that card or that match on this card on paper? And do you think that, Remy does have something to prove? Because, the fans are going to be 100% behind him because they just hate Class with all their passion.
Well, obviously Class is now the Nevada State champion. He really didn't earn the victory, but he earned the case, so he got that opportunity. And after the Suavecitos, beat down Remy, he was right for the pickings. So now there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Now let's see we've seen the improvement of Class, but now is he world class enough to beat, the most decorated champion in FSW history? The guy's been the Nevada State champion. He's been the very short, but he still was the heavyweight champion. He was tag team champion.
Right.
And he was an elite champion when we had that belt. You know what I mean? So it's like, and he was the first ever no limits champion, and he held that twice. And, now he's looking to get to Nevada State for the second time. So, this is a big moment for class. We've seen the rise pretty quickly. We've also seen him wrestle guys like Graves and a few others that, he didn't come out successfully. So he's improving every single match. So, a true victory over Remy Marcel really puts him at top of the line. And, if he beats Remy, I see him as a top contender for the heavyweight title.
Right. And speaking of the heavyweight title, obviously we got Cage and Hammerstone going, and we, talked a little bit about that. But we also have a tag team title match that is a 3-way. You've got Shogun and Hero and Toka Uso, and of course Death Proof defending those titles. Man, when you look at the possibility of the ring breaking before the cage matches go on, is this the match that the big boys are going to be coming out to play? And then you also have Hammerstone and Cage, amongst the big boys. Is it exciting for you that you have the the no limit type of wrestlers on the show, which is definitely going to be something else? But I know you're an old school guy like me who likes to see the big hosses just beat the hell out of each other.
Well, you got Cody and Jake. They've been together in the following. Jake on his own was a no limits champion. Cody was a no limits champion. Cody was also a tag champ in the following, and Jake was also, they wrestled a few times together in matches. And, they're the big guns. They've beaten, the best FSW has had to offer. They haven't beat Toka Uso yet. And Toka Uso, those are two big boys. As I stated a couple weeks ago, that's going to be the opening match on the show. So I really hope the ring doesn't break, because it could be a long night. You know what I'm saying? And, Hero and Shogun have recently really gotten opportunities to do things, and that might be because of Ice Williams in the faction. But they've had a lot of continuity. They've become big fan favorites. They're big boys too, and got all the talent in the world. So on one hand, you got the experienced vets. They've been there. They've done that. Then you got the new blood, I guess you could say, with Shogun and Hero. And then you got Toka Uso with MK, the outside guys, Toa getting a lot of love, AEW, he, was presented in a very bright light as he teamed up with somebody else against FTR. And then you got Juicy. Juicy has only got a couple of years in also. And those guys are very young, but they've made a splash in the wrestling business. So to me, I believe it's a great way to kick things off. There's 5 title matches. There's 4 steel cage matches. There's returns. Danny Limelight's back. Tom Lawler and Graves. Splitting it up. KO or submission only. Who's the toughest guy in FSW? Many people feel Graves is the toughest guy. Well, Lawler has not really been a mainstay in FSW despite living out here. So, Graves is out here enough. So it's who's the toughest guy in Vegas. A lot of MMA fighters, but you know what? If I had Graves and Lawler, I'd have a hard time thinking there's somebody that's going to whip their ass.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to run into them, on a dark alley alone at 1 o'clock in the morning. Let me ask you, you mentioned the faction, Ice Williams, Chris Bay. if Chris is able to beat Ice and become the No Limits champion, that's a belt he never held, correct?
Yes, he did. He held it for 2 minutes.
Okay, what's the story on that one? The 2
Okay,
minute
Chris
title.
Bay. We had a ladder match, I believe, and Chris Bay won the championship. And as he was celebrating, the cash in the case winner from that year was Nick Bugatti. And Nick Bugatti, as the crowd was roaring in excitement, the young stud, everybody was excited. Chris Bay has finally reached the promised land, winning his first championship. And then Nick Bugatti beat him down, and 2 minutes later, Nick Bugatti was the No Limits champion. So Chris Bay is looking to redeem himself. And, you know, since he is the shortest, not only No Limits, but he's the shortest reigning champion in FSW history. So he's hoping that, you know, he can get a second opportunity to parade that belt around.
And you know, Ice was at Impact yesterday, you know, promoting the show, and I'll tell you, just Ice standing at a table holding a poster, fans hate him. They hate him. So it's
You know,
going to be
it was the number was apropos. He told me the other day when I saw him that he has now been champion for 666 days.
Well, and we'll see if that's his lucky number or unlucky number come this Saturday. And that's going to be the main event. But before that, man, we're looking at probably the most anticipated match between Matt Vandegrift and Damian Drake. Not only a cage match, but a weapons cage match. Boy, I tell you, man, I'm nervous to see what these two are going to do to each other, because you talk about Damian has stated, and we're putting out 3 different parts here in the next couple days of an interview with Damian Drake. So you guys want to check that out. Look up the Vegas Bad Boys on any podcast platform. But Damian just feels like he's never gotten an answer from Matt. And Matt has seemed to be able to avoid answering anything, because every time he gets in the ring with Damian to give Damian an answer, it ends up in
I'll tell you what I heard.
Okay.
I heard he did it for the spider. Just saying. That's what I heard. You know, whether that's true or not, I cannot confirm or deny. But I heard rumor Tommy Deuce Spider kind of paid off Matt Vandegrift, because, you know, there's still a sour taste in Spider's mouth over how, you know, basically what Matt Vandegrift did to Damian Drake did to Spider. So, you know, it's good for the goose, as they like to say.
And, you know, hey, man, we all know that Spider's got connections. So
yeah. And there's one other match that we recently announced. The women's title is on.
Yes.
Sandra Moon, fresh off her first national appearance, got to wrestle on Impact, that you'll be seeing on TV in a few weeks. She is going up against, you know, a lady who's the PCW women's champion, as well as numerous all over California. She's trying to add a championship in Nevada for the first time, as Viva Van, who has been very successful since we've seen her at the women's show in August, SummerSlam weekend. She's had some impressive victories. So she's getting an opportunity to wrestle Sandra Moon.
Yeah, and it's great that Sandra is defending the title against Viva, because she's come a long way and is looking great. Like you said, had a lot of opportunities recently. But you did mention Sandra did get a match at Impact, which will be airing within the next about 6 weeks or so at some point. But she wrestled Moska Slamovich, who is another person who is making waves out on the East Coast. So Sandra's getting a lot of nice opportunities. Do you feel that being a homegrown talent from when she was a kid, literally, um, that you couldn't be any prouder of someone who's worked their way from that kids class to where she is now?
Well, just take a look. We talk about the FSW, the legacy of the heavyweight champions. Well, Lacey Ryan kind of started now the women's thing. She got signed. Maz took over. She was all over Ring of Honor, scheduled to make more appearances there. Sandra Moon is now the champ. So, we're 3 for 3. Before that was Taya, and obviously she was more established. But our first women's champion was Heather Monroe. And if you look at Heather Monroe, you see her all over the place also. So, whether you talk about a knack for talent that I have, we haven't had many duds, in those positions. There's always been a couple shit stains on the board, but it happens to everybody. But our champions have been very successful, after the fact, so, there's no denying what FSW's brought to the table. So if somebody's looking for some great talent, whether it's MLW, whether it's AEW, whether it's AAA, whether it's New Japan, you don't have to go far. You can pluck some great talent, right here in Las Vegas. And like I said, California is 10 times the size of Nevada, and mainly Vegas. And I would say there's more talent in Las Vegas from FSW than there is in California. And, I couldn't tell you exactly why it is. I'm not going to go out here and say, well, it's because FSW. Well, no, there's a lot of factors, whether there's good training. But I think the main reason is when, like, a 14-year-old kid like Bodie, who people have high hopes for as being a true superstar down the line, the guys Bodie gets to work with every day will make him so much better. There might be a couple of guys in every wrestling school that's pretty good, but we have a roster full of guys that are very, very good,
Yeah.
And I'll give some props. I saw, the Booker T show last weekend, and they had a lot of talented guys, but I don't know if there's 10 or 15 more, because if there's not, well, we do. We
Right.
have 10 or 15 more than what you're going to see, when you're talking about the younger talent. Then there's that mid-level talent that kind of just got over the hump, the Sky Highs of the world, that they got a little more time in. And then you got the top of the heap, and that's, the Damian Drakes and the Jay Vidals and the Matt Vandegriffs. And, we may not have trained them, but Toko Uso. It's kind of like when we had Sean Ricker, Eli Drake, LA Knight, and Brian Cage, all four of them, when we had all four of those guys. It was guilty by association. They were kind of FSW guys. Now, not when trained with us, but we were utilizing them in big positions before they became not even a household name, top indie names, and those guys became big indie stars. And then, both of them and even Cross, they all became big Impact stars. And, even Brian and, worked AAA. That was one funny story that I never got to talk about. We had a show, and I was DJing at Olympic Gardens, and it was like a triple mania. I think it was Brian Cage was doing a hair match, and I think it might have been against Del Rio. Okay. And Brian had an early morning flight. So we did the show at the Silverton. He might have actually wrestled Bryce Harrison that night, but I'm not positive. So it was probably about 5:45. My shift ended at about 6 a.m. And Brian's calling me up. He's like, where's this motherfucker? He's supposed to give me a ride. I called him up. He was a fucking sleep. I'm going to miss my flight to Mexico. Okay. I'm like, what the fuck? And basically, the entire journey of him being in the car, which was a van, to get to the airport, now the motherfucker missed the flight. Misses the flight
Oh,
for Triple Mania. And he's going crazy. And it's all because the guy who was supposed to drive him fell asleep and wasn't able to get him in time. So now Brian has to book a flight. And now the flight's like over $1,000 for him to get there in time for the show. Needless to say, the other guy comes back and gives Brian the money for the flight because he fucked up.
wow.
Brian gets there in time, and then they canceled Triple Mania for 2 days, and they didn't run it till Tuesday that year. So in reality, that's the greatest Brian Cage story I got.
Oh shit. Oh my god. That is
And Brian was like stunned, like, this dude gave me the fucking money. I was like, holy shit.
God, that's I mean, you don't see that especially with the way things are and but just that's you can't write that shit. That's amazing.
That's a Stu Stone movie.
That is
Stone with Brian Cage.
oh man. As we get ready to kind of wrap up here and Diversion Amusements is obviously the spot that the show will be going down on Saturday. It can also be ordered on Fight TV as well. And it is a 7 o'clock start time here in Vegas. So 10 o'clock on the East Coast if you guys are looking for it on Fight TV. When you go into these big shows and you're obviously now in I think the third show with running Diversion Amusements, how has that relationship now kind of started to grow since the first time that you guys ran with them early on in the summer?
Well, it's weird. The first time we ended up doing it, Randy, who was running things, was a big wrestling fan. He helped out. He did security at Nitro Grill. So he loved the idea of doing the wrestling. Others, not so much. And, for what reason, I still don't understand it. We run a professional show. We don't ever have any issues. We bring a good crowd to the event. We sell, a lot of liquor and food and drinks. And now we did the first show. And 3 weeks before the second show, I get a call from a lady and it's like, where's Randy? And it's like, oh, he's doing some work for the owner in his other business. He owns another business. Okay. So I talked to Randy and, he didn't seem very excited about not being a part of it or whatever. And we talked to the ladies, Liz and Susan, and, both very, very nice. They cut us a deal. Wasn't as good a deal as Randy's, of course. But, I get it. For what other people were trying to charge, it was still a very good deal. So we went in there. We did our thing. We had some minor issues, closing. We have a food and beverage guarantee, yet somehow an hour before the show, the bar manager's shutting the food off. Like, we hit our number an hour before the show, so there should be no complaints. But when you say our numbers weren't that great, well, if we sold X amount of dollars in an hour and a half, we probably would have sold just as much in another hour. So if the whole idea is, well, you need to make money, why are you shutting anything down? Because you didn't shut it down because you ran out of all the food. So now what happened? You cooked that food, you had it prepared, and now you got to throw it out and not sell it. I was actually looking for a sandwich, and the lady ended up getting it for me, which was cool because they don't want to give us freebies. But she's like, oh, I'll get you a sausage sandwich, which I like their sausage sandwiches. And they have a really good food menu. and they got snacks and they got, drinks, and they got whatever you need, popcorn, the pretzels, the sausage sandwich, the tenders, they have a nice little, to go takeout type menu that, people go there, and that's the reason why people want to go out. They want to drink, they want to eat, they want to watch wrestling and have a good time. And, unfortunately, that's the reason why we do good at the school, but we don't do great at the school, because a lot of people use that night as a night out. Going to school, you have to be, and thankfully we have a lot of those hardcore fans, and they kind of make almost every show we got. But when we do a big show, again, we're already sold out a front row. There's 80 seats. There's less at the school shows, and in a lot of cases, we don't sell it out because there's a lot of other things going on, and that's a show that people feel they can miss. But if you're a wrestling fan and you love FSW, unless something major is going on, you're not missing No Escape. You're not missing the Mecca. You know? So, we're going to look. Diversion is a very good mid-sized facility for us. But if we're going to do a Mecca show, I think with the names we're bringing in, we could do more than their capacity. So, we're always looking anyway, just to have like another option, especially like on different sides of town, because not everybody drives, not everybody wants to take a bus. Not everybody's going to Uber. So we liked it when we had Sam's Town in the middle of the, of town. And then we had Silverton on the far south side of town. And I would always hear from people, oh, I love when you do shows in Silverton because I can't go to Sam's Town. It's too far. Oh, I love it when you do it at Sam's Town. It's easier to get to because, I can't get to the Silverton because you got to take 4 buses. What the fuck? You get 3 hours back and forth to go see a 3-hour show. So now it's become a 10-hour day. So, and having that ability to do that keeps things fresh. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's unfortunate new people took over the Silverton, didn't let us do stuff. Sam's Town's pretty much against running entertainment. The guy, I saw the one guy that we knew at Sam's Town this weekend. We had met him once. He was the main guy at the Northside Cannery when we did Mecca 2.
Okay.
And Bob and like one other tech guy were the only 2 people out of probably 20 that we dealt with at Sam's Town over the years. And, I asked him what's up, and he says, honestly, the casinos are doing very well, and they don't need to spend money on entertainment because entertainment wasn't a big money maker for them. So now they could make even more money because now instead of having 15 people on salary for the entertainment division, they have 1. So they weren't making that much as it is. Now the whole bottom line is cut because they have nobody there. And then when Impact needs to come in, they're like, okay, well, I know you paid this, but this is what it is now. And they need a facility and they need a place. So they have deep enough pockets to go out there and spend that money. So unless Sam's Town is going to make a lot of money on the show, they're no longer concerned with how many people we're bringing through the door. The first night at Impact, I don't, whether, who was seat fillers, vet techs, people purchasing tickets, there was not an empty seat in the house, So don't tell me there's 500 people there and 50 or 60 aren't going to spend $20, $50, $100 that would have never done that in your casino.
Yeah.
And the place is paying you. It was like, they didn't give us the room for free anymore. So we're paying you. So we're covering all your costs, but they like to use the word 4-wall. Well, it's a 4-wall. Well, yeah, it's easy to say it's a 4-wall because then you give us no credit for what we've provided to your business because it isn't a 4-wall. Even I saw at Impact the other night. Oh, after party at TGIFs. Nobody's giving them free food at TGIFs. They got to pay for it, but Impact's fronting the bill. So there's 100 people probably there that if they spent $20, which is simple, you get 1 meal at TGIFs. You know? So you got a few grand just made from that. that they would have never made on a Monday night at 10 p.m. You know, and same thing when we'd run shows on a Sunday. You'd go in there at, you know, when they would run the Samstown, the WWE pay-per-views, and TGIF was empty. Go to an FSW show, and after the show, 25 wrestlers are in there spending 20, 40, 60, $100. But, you know, for some reason, you know, they'd rather have, you know, I always laughed about it at the Silverton. They'd rather have Juice Newton, pay her like 20 grand to show up and do 500 seat fillers because they wanted those people to be in the building because nobody bought a ticket to hear one song.
Right.
Trained, by the way, or working. Yeah. Sheen Easton, whatever. Juice like one big song. Queen of Hearts. There it is. Playing with the
Queen of Hearts.
Yeah. There you go. And you're okay with paying her X amount of dollars and using seat fillers, but you're not okay with we just take the door and you still get the same 500 people. Isn't it cheaper? You know, but who knows? I digress.
Yeah, it's something that's it makes no sense, but you know, all you can do is continue to look around and hopefully something will get done for the Mecca. As we wrap up here, obviously it's Thanksgiving, what will be tomorrow, Thursday, if you're listening to this on Wednesday. Joe, what for you, thinking back to the childhood, what was Thanksgiving like at your guys' house?
Well, Thanksgiving was definitely a feast every year. We always celebrated it. You know, being a football fan, I was, you know, to this day, you know, I'm watching those football games. You know, I'm up at 9:30 in the morning to watch that first shitty Detroit Lion game, you know, that's going to be on. You know, recent years, they've added that 7 o'clock game or 8 o'clock game, which is 5 on the West Coast, which is hard to stay up because after eating, you know, turkey stuff, you want to go take a nap. But, you know, I always loved Thanksgiving, you know. My thing was, you know, I didn't cook the dinner, but I always made the sweet potato pie. You know, that's a classic. You know, that's the only thing we need left to get. You know, we got the marshmallows, we got the syrup, we got the cinnamon. I just got to get the sweet potatoes or the yams because I hate Trader Joe's ones because they're like this big and cook and peel like 40 of them. You know, I'd rather just get like 4 big ones and they peel much easier and you're done. So, you know, we're cutting down a little bit, you know, on the dinner, but, you know, turkey, mashed potatoes, biscuits, cream corn. Not doing the cream spinach this year. You know, it's just way too much food.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys, when you were a kid, did you guys have any incorporation of either the Italian or Puerto Rican foods?
No, it was always turkey.
Traditional.
That's during Christmas. So Christmas Eve, usually we do stuffed shells, which is the Italian style. And then Sunday, we have a pork butt, which is called a benil in Puerto Rican terms. You know, you basically cut holes in the thing and you put like whole garlic cloves. So it's a garlicky thing. And there's a Spanish style rice. And there's the, you know, the fried bananas, which are a little different, the plantanos and things like that. So, yeah, I just found out another cool dude I know. Turns out he's half Puerto Rican. Raj from the Desi Hit Squad. Who would have thought? Like, he without doubt is one of the nicest guys I've met. You know, I talked to him almost never. He was on my Facebook page, I guess. And after I had my heart surgery, you know, he came up to me, "Hey, Joe, how you feeling? You know, you doing okay? Blah, 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 blah." And, you know, so we've kept in touch. It's like always been a super nice guy. And then I didn't think he was back because I knew he had told me his knee blew out. I hadn't seen him, whatever. And I love his dad. His dad's great, Mike, you know. And we've always joked about bringing the dad in. Yeah, we'll use you, but as long as the dad comes, you know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden I see this, I look in the corner of my eye and I see a guy that looked like him, but he had a jersey that said Puerto Rico. And I looked over and it was Raj. I'm like, dude, you're Puerto Rican? He goes, oh, I'm half. I'm like, oh, okay, because I didn't think the dad was Puerto Rican, you know. And then we started talking. But again, the first time he seen me, hey, how you doing? Sorry about your mom, blah, blah, blah. Like, this guy is like genuinely one of the nicest people. Like, I always have those guys, I say the nicest people, Lance Hoyt, nicest people, Matt Hardy, what a nice guy. When I'm talking about superstars, I know Cage, I know Cross, but I'm talking about guys that you met through the business. And Raj legitimately is like one of the top 5 nicest people I have ever met, period. Not even like just wrestling people. Like, he is the nicest. So
Yeah, I 100%. Raj has been one of our biggest, supporters, followers, and still trying to hook up the interview with Raj because, well, you got to go through channels to do the interviews with, companies, and Raj really does want to do the interview, but there's going to be the time and a place apparently down the road. So,
well, I guess if you do it on the DeFalco files, I can call Ross or Scott, and I'm pretty sure it'll get okayed. Because I actually hit up Ross, and then I forgot to remind him so much was going on. The radio show I do Sunday mornings on KDWN 720 AM. We actually had Booker T on the week before, and I'd hit Ross up. I'm like, hey, you able to get me a guest or something? And he said, yeah, just remind me. And then I didn't remind him. So, that's on me. But, especially when they're in town, anything to promote their brand, I'm pretty sure they're okay with. It was great catching up, Moose, my goodness. How much of a superstar does he look like now? He was always a really talented guy, but he was just another one of the, guys. He was in the top level, but now he presents himself as the real deal. Like, I'm so glad for him, and nothing against Josh Alexander, but Moose has put in that time and effort that it was like, wow, they're pushing this Josh Alexander, man. I can't believe it. They just bypassed Moose. He re-signed. And then, you don't say it a lot of times about Impact, but it was pretty brilliant. He beat up Josh in front of his family. It was a hot angle, Big Cass, Morrissey, man, he's looking fantastic. Cardona, they really have, some good talent. A lot of these guys have reinvented themselves. It's always fun talking to Rich Swann. He's always the happiest, he's the Walt Disney of Impact, the happiest man in the world. You know what I mean? And, Willie's Willie. And that team, boy, it's like, that might be a Mecca team right there, bringing in Willie Mack and Swan, to wrestle a Death Proof, or a Toko Uso or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, made as many, connections as I could. We got Trey Miguel coming out, for Limitless. We wanted to lock him in because, unfortunately, Chris Bay ended up being booked somewhere else, which is funny because he's booked at a company called Limitless. I'm like, dude, I think you made a mistake. You booked yourself at Limitless Wrestling, not in the Limitless tournament. So I had to give him a little heat for that.
Yeah, shout out to Impact Wrestling. This weekend was really just spectacularly fun. Really good shows. Shout out to Ross Foreman for we had Eddie Edwards on our show. I know Moose and Eddie also did Thoughts Count Anywhere's podcast. So it's
Moose
definitely
did the signing with Scott Hosey.
Scott, yeah. So
we're working on a few with them. Hopefully for Mecca, whether it's Davey Richards, Jay Lethal, we're working on. Really hoping to solidify that one. I had to send him another message like, dude, we'd love to be able to announce it at No Escape. Because we got a couple other announcements I think that people are going to be interested in hearing. Might want to leak it out. I heard a rumor, that somebody big may return to FSW, but we can't confirm or deny.
Evan Daniels.
You let the cat out of the bag.
Damn.
Man, we were trying to keep it a surprise.
Oh man. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so excited about his return.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
The Mecca main event. Jody.
Now nobody's going to come to the show to hear the announcement because you gave it away.
Jody versus Evan Daniels, Mecca main event. Get your tickets now.
Where's that going to be at?
Probably probably a rec hall in northern Vegas. Oh man. Well, it's been fun, Joe. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time with the family, enjoy the football and the food. And everyone, please, remember you can sign up for the FSW network, $6.99 a month. Fight TV, if you're not in Vegas and you can't make it out to the show on the 27th. It's No Escape, 7 p.m. start on the West Coast. Get your tickets. The tickets are still available, but
not
usually
front row.
Yeah, front row's out. So usually it's a good idea to get some seats there because seating is, even though it's a medium-sized place, seating is limited. So to get yourself a seat, I would say get a ticket earlier than later. And it's going to be a big card again. Thank you so much to Brian Cage and AEW for allowing Brian to do a little bit of an interview here. And it's going to be really just so much fun to see him back in an FSW ring as well. Joe,
it's great to see a guy that, started with us, we made a star, and now he comes back. You know what I mean? It's really nice making stars.
It is. And I guess the next one you got to work on is LA Knight. You got to get Ricker back out here.
Yeah, well, that WWE thing. So, but keep your eyes pierced. You never know. Two members of the Mecca Grand Tournament, John Morrison and Shane Strickland, are now available by February 4th. They may be on the Mecca. Maybe John Morrison doesn't have to give up the Mecca Grand Championship at this point.
Yeah, and Taya, you can get Taya back for try to get her title. Yeah. WWE's losses. Yeah, WWE's losses.
Hey,
Joe DeFalco.
Brian Cage versus Keith Lee.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to use Keith Lee. I would use Bearcat Lee instead.
Well, see, that's the thing. If you use Bearcat, then Vince is going to get the money from you. He's going to sue your ass. Yeah. So, because that gimmick was probably one of the most recognizable and most memorable gimmicks in WWE history. And boy, if you infringe on the Bearcat trademark, watch out.
I'll tell you whatever you paid for the trademark for that name, boy, what a way. It's going to be Bearcat Fatu. That's going to be Sepha's new name when he comes up to the roster.
Yeah, that they're just going to give someone that because they got to get that money.
They already own it. It cost them $1,000. They're like, shit, we better use it. All right.
Oh man,
make some calls and get things moving and shaking. Never a dull day.
There we go. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.